Christmas morning used to carry a kind of hush. I loved the kind that lingered in the air just before a fire crackled or a kettle whistled. But this morning, it was laughter and torn wrapping paper. The chaos of ribbon and battery packs, and Sheridan's voice narrating every gift as if she were hosting a talk show. "Cashmere for Dad," she beamed, holding up a pale blue sweater. "AirPods for Ansel. Don't lose them this time. Buddy. Flora, yours is in the big green bag. Be gentle." The kids squealed. Declan stood behind the armchair with a glass of cider, watching the joy like he'd orchestrated it. I sat at the edge of the sofa, hands folded. I wasn't expecting anything lavish. I never was. A small candle, a card, maybe a handmade something from Flora, that was always enough. But the stack of presents was shrinking fast, and nothing with my name appeared. Boxes passed over my lap. Wrapping flew by my feet. Then Sheridan clapped her hands. "That's it. Oh wait, nope. That really is it," she laughed. Declan chuckled and nudged her shoulder. "We did it, babe." I smiled soft and quiet. "I think you forgot one person." Sheridan's eyebrows lifted. "Oh, did we?" There was a flicker of awkward silence before she tossed her hair and said, "Oops, must have slipped our minds." "It's fine," Declan added quickly. "You always say you don't want anything, Mom." "I do?" I nodded. And I meant it. I stood up slowly and stretched my legs. "That's okay," I said. Walking toward the kitchen. I got myself something too. Behind me, I could feel the glance Sheridan gave Declan, the kind you throw when something doesn't quite land. But I kept my tone light, my steps even. I turned the kettle on the hum of boiling water, soft beneath the distant crackling of gift wrap. In the other room, they'd gone back to noise and laughter. But in that moment, I was already planning something quieter, something far warmer. After the gifts were done, I found myself as always in the kitchen, rinsing dishes, stacking cups, wiping crumbs from a counter I didn't spill on. Sheridan had already slipped into the armchair with her wine, her voice carrying over the hum of a holiday playlist. Declan was deep in conversation with a co-worker friend who had joined us for dinner, talking about something to do with quarterly returns. I moved quietly, unnoticed. The dishwasher beeped, and I refilled it. I didn't mind helping, not really. But there was something different this year. Not the missing gift. Not even the missing thanks. Just something settled. Something done. As I dried the last fork, I heard them in the next room. Sheridan's voice low and conspiratorial. She's sweet, of course, but she's just always there, you know, like part of the furniture. The woman she was speaking to murmured a polite laugh. Declan's too nice to say anything, but it's like boundaries. We all need boundaries, right? My fingers gripped the dish towel a little tighter. I set the fork down. Gently. Walked back to the guest house without a word. Inside, it was quiet, still decorated the way I liked it. Soft, pine-scented candles on the mantel. The small ceramic nativity I'd kept since 1986, and Flora's crayon drawings pinned beside the light switch. I sat down at my desk and opened my notebook. On the top page, Phase 1 Remain Underestimated. A neat little check mark beside it. I opened my laptop and logged into the dashboard. 6 little green dots pulsed on the screen. Mourwick Holdings, stable across every branch. Quarterly sales above forecast. New boutique clients in Aspen and Santa Barbara. Distribution contract in final review. I pressed my finger gently against the mousepad. Then opened a blank email draft. To Irma Glynn, subject reveal plan body. Let's begin. Quietly, but fully. I didn't need fireworks. I needed precision. And it was time to light the first match. The first candle I ever made was in a chipped enamel mug. I'd found it in the back of the pantry a few months after Carl died. I remember holding it in my hands, thinking how strange it felt to have so much time, but so little warmth. I didn't start with plans or forecasts. I started with grief. Beeswax lavender oil and a saucepan I ruined in the process. I sold 6 candles at the town craft fair that year, then 12 the next. By year 3, a woman from a gift shop in Maine asked if I could do a custom batch. I stayed up until 3 in the morning, pouring and labeling each one by hand. In 2012, I registered the name Mourwick Flameworks. I used my maiden name deliberately not to hide, but to protect the work. Declan once laughed when he saw me stirring wax on the stove. That your new therapy, Mom Sheridan added, you should sell those on Etsy or something very grand millennial. I smiled, as I always did, and didn't correct them. They thought it was a hobby. I let them. But behind the scenes, I built it slowly, precisely. I hired Irma when I could finally afford help with taxes. She ended up becoming my business partner in every way that mattered. She handled negotiations and I handled scent formulas, product strategy, and brand voice. We kept it lean. We kept it ours. The turning point was 2017 when a boutique hotel chain placed a recurring order for our winter cedar line. From there, everything changed. Distribution picked up, the studio expanded, but I kept my name off the storefronts. That was part of the plan. No one in the family ever asked me what I did with my time. Not once. They assumed I filled my days with crosswords and casseroles. I suppose that's what made this next part so easy. The empire was already built. The only thing left now was the unveiling. 2 days after Christmas, I offered to take the kids upstate for the weekend. A little snow, some quiet hot chocolate by the fire, something simple. Sheridan wrinkled her nose before I even finished the sentence. Flora has gymnastics, she said, and Ansel's got that STEM camp thing on Saturday. We're trying not to disrupt their routine. Declan added, plus, Mom, you don't need to wear yourself out. The roads will be icy. Just take it easy. I nodded, as I always did, took my cup of tea back to the guest house and closed the door gently behind me. I'd already booked the cabin, of course. I'd cancel it later. That night, while I was folding laundry, there was a soft knock. I opened the door and found Flora clutching a piece of folded paper and her favorite stuffed lamb. She stepped in quietly and handed me the drawing. I made this earlier. She said, not quite meeting my eyes. I unfolded it. Crayon lines bold and crooked, a picture of me standing beside 2 glowing candles, a heart floating above us. She'd even drawn my glasses a little too big. I was thinking, she said, you're like a candle. You always make things feel warm and safe. I blinked faster than usual, then bent down and pulled her into my arms. She smelled like sugar cookies and shampoo. My throat tightened. Thank you, sweetheart, I whispered into her hair. This is the nicest gift I've gotten all year, she giggled, then looked at me. Can I leave Lambie here tonight? Just for a sleepover. Of course, I smiled. After she tiptoed back to the main house, I sat for a long time holding that drawing. Later, I opened my laptop again and composed a message. To Irma Glynn, subject phase 2. Body transfer full managerial control to the trust. Timeline begins now. Then I tucked Flora's drawing into my desk drawer, right above the sealed envelope marked Flameworks Future Recipients. The article went live on a Wednesday morning. Irma had warned me the magazine had a wide readership, but I didn't expect the flood of messages that came within the hour. Old clients, boutique owners, even a local radio station, all congratulating me on finally stepping into the light. I answered only one of them, a florist from Vermont, who used to send handwritten thank you notes with every candle shipment. The rest I let sit. By the time Sheridan sent the link to the family group chat, she had already called me twice. I didn't answer either time. Is this a joke, her message read? Then another. Why are they calling you the quiet empress of artisan wax? I waited a few minutes, then replied with a thumbs up emoji. Around noon, Declan knocked on the door to the guest house. He didn't wait for me to invite him in. He held his phone in one hand, the screen still glowing. "You're her?" he asked, like I was some urban legend. I set my tea down. "I suppose I am." He stared at me, bewildered. "This company, this empire, it's you. And you never said a word I didn't think you were interested," I said gently. "You always assumed I was just tinkering." He sat down hard in the armchair across from me. "You have a national brand, Mom." I smiled faintly. "International now, actually." That night at dinner, Sheridan poured herself a second glass of wine and said loudly, "We just think it's weird that you didn't say anything." I looked across the table. "I told you on Christmas. I got myself something. You didn't ask what it was." Flora beamed at me from the other end of the table. "It was a really big something," she whispered. Sheridan scoffed. "This whole thing feels like a PR stunt." I turned back to my plate and said calmly, "Would you like to see the trademark papers?" The table went quiet. Even Ansel stopped chewing. It was the first time in years I'd seen them all listen without interrupting. 2 days after the article came out, Declan knocked again, more gently this time. He stood on the porch with a sheepish smile and a calendar invite on his phone. "There's a client gala next weekend," he said. "Big names. Could be a good opportunity. For you too. You know visibility." I raised an eyebrow. "You want me to attend your firm's gala?" Well, he hesitated. "Not just attend. They're short on sponsors since one pulled out. I thought maybe Flameworks could fill in. It'd be mutually beneficial." I paused, then smiled. "Flora comes with me." He blinked. "What? She'll be my guest. She's the only one who gave me a Christmas present after all." Declan opened his mouth, then nodded. "I'll tell Sheridan." The week passed in small flurries. I called Irma to confirm logistics. She chuckled when I told her about Declan's invite. "So now they remember you exist. They remember the empire," I replied. "That's close enough." The day of the gala, I wore a deep plum dress I hadn't used since Carl's retirement dinner, the last time anyone asked me to stand beside them in public. Flora wore silver shoes and a velvet ribbon in her hair. I let her choose my earrings. Sheridan barely looked at me when we entered the hotel ballroom. Her smile was stretched thin, like it cost her something. Declan greeted a few guests before turning to me. "They'll announce the sponsors after dessert." I nodded. Perfect. Irma had sent the revised program that morning. Mourwick Flameworks. Lead sponsor was printed in gold lettering at the top. There would be no mistaking it. Flora squeezed my hand as the lights dimmed. All these years of being overlooked, invisible, useful, but unnecessary. I'd stayed quiet because I believed it kept the peace. But now I saw that peace wasn't real. It was just avoidance dressed up in manners. The microphone buzzed. A voice began reading names on stage. And when mine came, it echoed louder than I imagined. "Our lead sponsor this evening," the announcer said, pausing as the spotlight scanned the crowd, "is none other than the founder of Mourwick Flameworks, Varela Mourwick." There was a moment of stunned quiet, then applause, unsure at first, then growing polite, then curious, then warm. I rose from my seat, gently took Flora's hand, and made my way toward the stage. The light was blinding, but I could still make out Sheridan's face as I passed, her mouth parted, just slightly frozen in a smile that didn't know what to do next. Declan looked like he'd swallowed his own breath. I stepped up to the podium, heart steady, not fast. I hadn't rehearsed. I didn't need to. "Good evening," I said, adjusting the microphone just slightly. "It's lovely to be here, and I thank you for the invitation." A few polite chuckles from the crowd. I let them land before I continued. For many years, I was just the woman folding napkins in the background of events like these, and I was content with that. Quiet work can still be meaningful work. I paused and glanced at Flora, who was beaming from her seat in the front row. But tonight, I'm not here as someone's guest. I'm here as someone whose name stands at the top of the program. I'm here because sometimes the work we do in silence deserves its moment in the light. A few heads turned toward Declan. Sheridan had gone still, glass in hand, wine untouched. I thank the organizers for honoring a small business that believes in warmth presence and resilience, the kind that's hand-poured and slow burning. I stepped away from the mic. Applause rose again, louder this time, more certain. As I walked back to my seat, more than one person stopped me to shake my hand. A woman leaned in and said, "I have your winter cedar in my guest room. It's divine." I smiled, nodded, thanked her. When I sat down, Flora whispered, "That was perfect." It was the first time in decades that my name had filled a room, and it wouldn't be the last. The week after the gala was unusually quiet. Sheridan didn't stop by. Declan texted once, asking if I needed anything from the store. I replied with a simple, "No thank you." I knew what was coming next. Not surprise, not curiosity. Worry. It arrived one evening just after dinner, cloaked in a forced smile and Declan's too casual knock on the guesthouse door. He stepped inside like he had rehearsed something. "Mom," I wanted to say, "the gala was incredible. Really. You spoke well." Everyone was impressed. I nodded. "Thank you." He lingered by the bookshelf, flipping through a photo of Flora when she was 4. Then he cleared his throat. "I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're thinking about the future of Flameworks, I'd love to help. Maybe get more involved." I looked at him. "You want to run the company?" "Well," he shrugged. "It's part of the family, right? Shouldn't it stay that way?" Sheridan entered without knocking, her heels clicking on the hardwood. "We were just thinking," she said. "It makes sense to begin transitioning things. It's a lot of work for one person, and you deserve to rest." I folded my hands. "You mean I should hand it over?" Sheridan smiled tightly. "We're just offering support." I rose from my chair, walked to the filing cabinet, and pulled out a sealed folder. I placed it gently on the table. "This is my will. The trust documents are inside. Irma has the originals." Declan blinked. "You already." "It's all decided," I said. "Flora and Ansel will inherit the company equally." Sheridan stared. "Wait, you're giving it to the children? To the only ones who never treated me like I was invisible?" Silence settled like dust. On the inside cover there was a handwritten note. "You inherit nothing because you saw me as nothing." I slid the folder toward them, then turned and poured myself a cup of tea. They didn't speak again as they left, but the tension trailed behind them like smoke. Sheridan was cold to me after that, but in her own polished way. She still smiled when guests were over, still offered me a plate at dinner, but the warmth was gone. Every gesture was an echo. Declan, for his part, looked tired, like he was carrying something too large and too late. He brought me flowers one afternoon, out-of-season tulips in plastic wrap, and said nothing when I thanked him. I didn't need apologies. I'd already released the hope for any. Instead, I turned toward what still felt alive. Flora came by nearly every day after school. She started asking about the different candle molds on my shelves, the scents I blended from scratch, the wax temperatures scribbled in pencil on the sides of old jars. She listened with the kind of focus most people reserve for miracles. "I want to learn how to make one," she said, one afternoon pushing up her sleeves like she was ready to conquer the world. So I let her. We started small, a single pour vanilla clove in a mason jar. She labeled it in her own handwriting and gave it to her teacher the next morning. The next day, she asked if we could make 5 more. That week, I filed the paperwork for a new Flameworks initiative, a mentorship fund for girls ages 10-17 interested in product design and small business. I named it after my grandmother, the woman who once told me, "Never wait to be seen. Build the fire yourself." Flora would be the first recipient. The trust was structured so that when she turned 18, she'd have full creative and partial financial control, guided, not governed. I'd be there to support her as long as she wanted me. After that, she'd light her own way. One evening, as we sat on the floor labeling a fresh batch, Flora looked up and said, "I think candles are like people. Some just burn quietly, but they still make everything warmer." I smiled, tucking a label into place. "I think you're exactly right," I told her, as the wick caught fire beside us. A year later, I live in a quiet cottage along the coast, a few miles from where the city ends and the wildflowers begin. The air smells of pine and salt. My days are calm, the kind I once thought would feel empty, but they don't. Not anymore. Each morning, I walk down to the studio space I converted from the old garden shed. It's filled with shelves of dried herbs, glass jars, and hand-labeled boxes. Children from town come by on weekends to learn how to pour their own candles. Some are shy, some are loud. All of them leave with something glowing. Flora visits twice a month. She brings her notebooks, her drawings, and stories from school. Her favorite thing now is mixing her own scent blends. She's getting good at it. She named her last one Courage Berry, and I couldn't stop laughing. Ansel's still a little young to care about wax and wick, but he helps me stir sometimes. He mostly asks for marshmallows afterward. I hear from Declan, only rarely. A birthday message. A forwarded article about family businesses and legacy. Sheridan hasn't reached out since that night, and that's all right. I gave them years of my life, my patience, my presence. They didn't want me, just what they assumed I owed them. That part is done now. I light one candle each evening, always the same one, Resin and Resolve, a blend I created the day after I finalized the trust. The label's a deep red with silver script. I keep a box of them near the front door for anyone who needs a reminder of their own quiet power. Tonight, I sit at my small kitchen table and write a letter. It's not addressed to anyone, but I know who it's for. Thank you for forgetting me. That Christmas, I write the words smooth and even. It helped me remember myself. Then I fold the letter and tuck it inside the box with the others' flames that never needed permission to burn.